We're going to start in the Gaza Strip, even though you might think we would start in Lebanon. We're just going to go in the same order that we normally do. And in the discussion, we'll dig into some of the theories about what's going on in Lebanon. But we're going to start in Gaza, in southern Gaza. There's your full map of the Gaza Strip. Again, you see the two key corridors, the Netzarim corridor, and in the south, the Philadelphia corridor. And if we get the zoom in map of Rafah, you can see where multiple operations have taken place just in the last 36 hours. I don't have the video in time for you on the show today. We'll have to dig into that next week, but the reports came in late last night that 4 Israeli soldiers were killed and 4 others seriously wounded, including 2 officers, and the commander was one of the ones killed from the Shaked battalion, which the IDF calls the elite battalion of the Givati Brigade, who are currently with the 162nd Division fighting in Rafah. They said that the �Bassam brigades have been destroyed in Rafah, the same claim we've heard all over Gaza. And then as soon as the Israelis re-invade areas, we see that the brigades are not dismantled, they're not destroyed. And this is the same case with Rafah. In the last few days, the commander of the 162nd Division said, we've destroyed �Bassam in Rafah. He said that we have dealt with the tunnels. He said he dealt with 203 tunnels along the Philadelphia corridor. But interestingly, he admitted that there was only 9 cross-border tunnels that they found, and all 9 of those tunnels had been previously sealed by Egypt, by �Bassam. They were collapsed. And so this whole story that I've been reporting on for weeks from Netanyahu about scuttling the ceasefire and prisoner exchange talks because of staying in the Philadelphia corridor as if it's the oxygen for the �Bassam brigades. Again, just another Israeli claim that doesn't match the evidence, even their own evidence that they provided. And there was another attack this morning in Tel Sultan, where we saw a D9 bulldozer get hit by a Yassin. The Israeli military said 1 was seriously wounded. And then just before we came on air, �Bassam dropped a video showing them hitting the D9 yesterday and then burning it today. 24 hours later, it was still abandoned. So �Bassam captured the D9 bulldozer and then burned it today. And like I said, I will bring you those on the show next week. The main things from this past week to say is that the field reports have been down on both sides. The Israeli field reports are almost exclusively, as Nora pointed out, attacking hospitals. Attacking shelters, school shelters. Hospitals was the previous stage. They're now attacking the shelters, the schools, in a systematic way, more than 75 times since the beginning of July. And they're open about it. In their field reports, they treat it like as if it was a heroic military mission, that they bombed from a distance shelters in the 10% of the Gaza Strip that remains for the civilian population. And so Israel has been bragging about that. And as Nora said, the report came out from the Gaza Ministry of Health, listing the names and ages of everybody that they have recorded that's been killed since October 7th. And just a note, they recorded 710 babies under the age of 1, so 0 years old. More babies have been killed by Israel than the most generous definition of civilians inside Israel on October 7th. What we'll find out once we get through these numbers of October 7th is that it's going to end up being more than double the number of babies than civilians killed in Israel during the raid on October 7th. So the genocide is not a battle of proportionality, but those statistics about the children are disgusting and something that we should never, ever forget. So let's look at number 1 here. This is Soraya Al-Quds. We have here, again, the fighters right up close to this Israeli tank. And we have these fighters moving through the streets saying, "Here come the sons of Soraya." And we have 2 units here with 2 RPG-7s with 85mm warheads. These are not tandem charge warheads. So we're going to watch these fighters here fire 2 in the same spot to try to make this weapon more effective than it is against the up armor of the Israeli armored vehicles that have surpassed the penetration levels of this weapon. So you can see, again, point blank. It's not the best spot to shoot from right at the front. You can see the tank's shape at the front is built for protection at the front. When we see the fighters with the Yassins, they're often going for the back corners or the sides or the turret gaps. So that head-on shot. But then you can see the fighter say, launch the second one. So this is like the RPG-7 version of a double tap. And it's interesting to see them use it in a 1-2 punch like this to make a weapon that wouldn't otherwise be effective from that position. Gives it a chance to be a little bit more effective. And as I said, there was 1 soldier wounded in a tank. It's possible that it was this tank. We don't have all the videos from this week. They may come out a little bit later. This 𝐓𝐴 𝐤𝐿 video that gives you the long version of them running down through the alley and getting away is from a couple of days ago. It took a couple of days for 𝐓𝐴 𝐤𝐿 to put out that video. But again, you can just see the proximity these fighters have after they've been told that they don't exist anymore. These guys got told they don't exist, and then over the last it's like less than 72 hours since the commander, the Israeli commander, said they don't exist anymore, that they're out here blowing up their special forces units, and that's what we've seen all along. And the question isn't how many operations are the Qassam brigades carrying out and 𝐓𝐴 𝐤𝐿 carrying out in at this point in this week. We understand they're settling into a battle of attrition. A little later on, I'll mention a letter from Yahya Sinwar that addresses that directly, that this is a battle of attrition. And if once they saw the stage go into this battle of attrition, there's no need to chase the Israeli army along the Philadelphia corridor endlessly. If they move into the city, they get hit. The previous show last week, I was saying that they had moved into the corridor and they weren't into the city. And as we can see from these videos, they did come into the city this week a couple of times, and they're hit. And it's the same thing all throughout Gaza. They're not defeated. They're not dismantled. They're able to reform with whatever losses that they do have. And there's absolutely no question that fighting this war is costly for the resistance. They lose fighters. It's costly for the civilians. We know that, obviously. It's costly for the Israelis. We know that too. So we're not trying to downplay the casualties, but the Israelis are lying and carrying out psychological operations, and they need to be finished in Gaza. They need to claim Gaza. As we remember, Rafah was the last stand. It was the last place that Israel had to go to be able to claim victory in Gaza. And so they have to tell us, they have to say to us, to their audience, to their domestic audience, that we achieved this goal. And so these are just statements that don't reflect the reality of the fighting capacity of the groups. Because Qassam could see that this battle of attrition was shaping up for months now, and we've seen them adapt their strategy accordingly. So if we go to number 2, Tamara, I brought this to you last week and talked about the helicopter crash, the medevac helicopter crash in Rafah last week on the day of our show, September 11th. There was some question whether the resistance had shot down the first medevac helicopter, which we know they have not been doing throughout this war. Well, over the course of the week, I just wanted to update you on the story that and we can look at the next one too tomorrow. That was a graphic version of it. This is the drone footage of it. But what we're seeing here is the medevac helicopter crashing on the berm that we've also been covering throughout this war. The way the D9 armored bulldozers create those berms around the Israeli positions to protect from Yassin fire, to protect from sniper fire. And they've redone the landscape anywhere they are. They set up these massive berms. So the resistance didn't shoot down this helicopter, but the resistance operations is the reason why the helicopter crashed. It crashed on the berm. 2 Air Force soldiers were killed. 8 were wounded, including the soldier that they were going to rescue. And the soldier they were going to rescue was hit by RPG fire by the people that their commander said didn't exist in Rafah anymore. So again, we get proof of these operations. So there's the helicopter operation. The resistance didn't shoot it down, but the resistance is the reason it crashed. So let's look at number 4 here, because 𝐓𝐡𝐞 𝐄𝐥𝐞𝐜 captured Israeli mortars. These are Israeli mortars, and they're showing them off here in another return to sender, a genre that I try to bring to you every week because it's an important part of this war. This fighter saying, "A message to the cowardly enemy leadership. These are your goods after your soldiers fled from the fight, from the might of our fighters, shells, and our artillery. We in 𝐓𝐴 𝐶𝐞 Central Battalion, we're looking out for you." And then here he's loading mortars that were supposed to be fired at Palestinian civilians. He's loading them up and sending them back to fire them at the Netzarim corridor. This shot is at the Netzarim corridor. But like I said, only a handful of operations this week in Gaza. So we'll keep our eyes on that going forward to see how the battle of attrition shapes up. Because if Israel's going to withdraw into the corridors, into defensive positions behind the berms, I think you're going to see a lower number of operations, but you may end up seeing more qualitative operations in that time. Israel doesn't look in any position, especially when we look at what happened in Lebanon today, doesn't look to be in any position to be negotiating for the only way to end this war. Hezbollah said the only way the war in the north is going to end is with a ceasefire in Gaza. Ansar Allah said the only way their attacks on shipping in the Red Sea are going to end is if the blockade of Gaza ends. And these groups have been clear about this from the beginning. And the resistance is ready to fight that battle of attrition. And they have been saying that for a long time. Abu Ubaidah said it months ago, as far back as May, that he understood that this was a long battle. And I've brought you quotes from the Israelis since the new year that have said that the Israelis plan on staying in Gaza for multiple years because they haven't achieved their objectives. They haven't destroyed the Hamas government. They haven't destroyed the Hamas fighters. They haven't dismantled, for all their efforts, haven't dismantled the hospital system. It's still the Gaza government in charge of the hospitals. It's still Hamas government in charge of civil defense. It's still Hamas security. It's still the Qassam brigades. And it's still the 10 other fighting forces in Gaza that are still carrying on. None of Israel's objectives have been achieved. They're not getting their people back. And so if they're not willing to negotiate, then it's going to be a war of attrition. And that's what we're seeing. And let's just take one quick look here at the West Bank, because the video was released from the horror of the camps battle. This is in Jenin. This is a Wolf armored vehicle that carries 8 to 12 soldiers in the back, getting hit by a pretty serious roadside bomb there. IEDs that that's the reason what you're seeing there is why they say they go in and dig up all of the roads in Jenin and 𝐓𝐿 𝐄𝐿. And there's fighting in Jenin today. This is from the Battle of the Horror of the Camps from 10 days or so ago. But there's fighting in Jenin today. There's fighting in Balata, in the camp outside Nablus. There's fighting in Nablus city. There's fighting in 𝐓𝐿 𝐄𝐿 and Nur Shams and on the road between 𝐓𝐿 𝐄𝐿 and Nur Shams. So the West Bank is still experiencing the escalating operation by the Israelis that wasn't over 10 days ago when they pulled out of Jenin. They said they were going to come back. So just wanted to bring you that video from the battle, the horror of the camps battle.